What a turnout. Unbelievable. Thank you for making the effort to be with us today at one of Dad's most favorite places. And thank you to the leadership of the club, especially Betsy Barrett, Ann Hollu, and Jeannie Shanley, for all their hard work in making sure that we could host this event here. Dad loved to quote his dad's words of wisdom. His two favorites of Grandpa's sayings were related to public speaking. The first was about speech length. Never punish a captive audience. And the second about speech content. Know your audience. On this day that we honor Dad, each of our speakers will do our best to follow these wise adages. But the standard they suggest seems daunting to me in this moment when it feels like there's so much to say. When I was a boy, my dad was like a superhero. There wasn't anything he couldn't do. Devoted husband and father, loyal friend, outstanding businessman, leader, athlete, and competitor. Dad even looked like a superhero. After seeing him in formal attire, more than a few of our childhood friends would swear that Dad bore a striking resemblance to Clark Kent. Red Bank Catholic is where our parents' lifelong friendship began, with Mom eventually becoming Dad's Earth Angel. There is an awesome picture in one of their yearbooks of Dad leaping up high in the air to grab a jump ball in a basketball game. Under the photo is the caption, "Does Dennis Lynch have springs in the sneakers?" That image was a preview of what was going to happen over and over from that point forward. Dad rising to the occasion. And in the eyes of his children, it was further proof that he was larger than life. The response to Dad's passing by his broad community has been phenomenal. The two most common words people have used to describe him have been legend and gentleman. We think that gentleman would also be a very apt description of Dad, gentle and kind. I know that many of you have read his obituary, beautifully written by our mom, which highlights his many and diverse accomplishments. It's a resume that most of us read and think, what exactly have I been doing with my life? How could one person do so much? Today, we want to further highlight the wonderful qualities that Dad possessed and the important roles he played, which led to the enormous impact he had on those around him. The gentleman and the gentle, kind man behind the legend. He would probably have called this focusing on the process as opposed to focusing on the outcome. Sister Anina, who taught Mom and Dad at Red Bank Catholic, referred fondly to Dad as a good boy. He was mild-mannered, thoughtful and confident, but not arrogant. And he treated everyone he encountered with respect. My sister Nora recalls that Dad looked for the good in others and always went out of his way to give them credit. She and my sister Kathy both emphasized his tremendous generosity in all its forms. My wife Marshall fully appreciates how polite he was. And my brother Will proudly notes that despite his Alzheimer's, Dad maintained his positive and easygoing demeanor. He was never promotional or boastful about his successes, and a recurring refrain in his life was people being amazed and discovering them. Hearing Dad's long list of achievements during his RBC Hall of Fame induction, my children, Eleanor and Coley, had a suddenly new appreciation for just how cool their grandpa was. His genuine humility made him an incredible role model. Dad was a big believer in balance and perspective. His wide range of interests, activities, and experiences enabled him to see things from many different vantage points, or what he called frames of reference. They were also the source of his high emotional intelligence, keen self-awareness, and ability to connect with all kinds of people. Dad seemed to always know the right thing to say, regardless of the circumstances. A clever comment, an intentionally corny joke, a perceptive question, or necessary feedback, but always in a manner most likely to resonate with his audience. Very occasionally, when something extraordinary happened, a sports miracle, a selfless act of giving, someone doing something truly unique, Dad would just shake his head and say, unbelievable. And that's partly how we knew we just witnessed something really rare, when even Dad couldn't find anything more to say. His insightfulness and relatability made him an amazing sounding board for so many of us here today. Dad was there for you. He had an unwavering belief in and commitment to his family, friends, and colleagues. Dad was not a pusher of his interests, philosophies, or methods, and he was constructive and patient when your plans and ideas did not play out as quickly as you hoped. Unsurprisingly, the culture at his investment firm, Lynch and Mayer, was open, friendly, and collegial. My brother Will was impressed with the natural dialogue and mutual respect that Dad had with everyone who worked there. There was no sense of fear, formality, or hierarchy. At his retirement party, Dad poignantly referred to the high-quality group at Lynch and Mayer as his second family. His flexibility, patience, and loyalty made him a great enabler. His goal was to put you in a position to succeed. Dad loved puzzles, riddles, brain teasers, and mysteries. Finishing the Sunday New York Times crossword was a core part of his weekly routine. He was a voracious reader of nonfiction, from historical biographies to books on financial theory, with the occasional Agatha Christie whodunit mixed in. Dad was the consummate Irishman, but he had a strong affinity for the German language that he learned in school. My brother Will recalls how he often would yell out, "Ach du lieber," or "oh my gosh," during many exciting Federer and Nadal matches. Even when speaking in an entirely different language, Dad was able to avoid using obscenities and the Lord's name in vain. If you thought you were going too far with your attempts at humor or sarcasm, Dad would admonish you with German, saying, "Don't be a Weisenheim." Looking back, I believe I earned dubious distinction of most all-time Weisenheimer winners. My sister Kathy notes Dad's appreciation and consistent support of educational institutions, how enthusiastic he was about the schools that he, his children, and grandchildren attended. His intellectual curiosity made him a lifelong learner. As a teenager, Dad worked in the summertime at Monmouth Park, where he fell in love with horses, racing, and handicapping. This experience served as a stepping stone to his passion for financial markets and investing. He kept a quote on his desk at the office that said, "Money lost, nothing lost. Courage lost, everything lost." For him, this was not just aspirational. His entrepreneurial spirit was apparent when he took a calculated chance in leaving Smith Barney and co-founding Lynch and Mayer when he was 35. Dad was creative and disciplined in his risk-taking, even when it was just for fun. Each week during the fall, he used the newspaper to create a system for making football picks against the spread for his office pool. Dad would count up which team in each game had the majority of the sports writer's support, and then he would take the other team. He never deviated from that strategy, and he won more than his fair share of those weekly contests. Many years later, that same discipline was evident when Dad was banned from the Trump Casino in Atlantic City for winning too much at blackjack. His creativity and self-restraint made him an exceptional investor. Dad had a certain innocence about him, not in a naive sense, but more of what some call a beginner's mind, an attitude of openness, eagerness, and a lack of preconceptions in life. He shared a strong appreciation of music with his mom, who was an excellent piano player, his brothers, Tom and Vincent, and his sister, Maureen. At Mass on Sundays, Dad enjoyed singing the harmony parts to the hymns as much as he did the melodies. He loved to play games of all kinds, but bridge and tennis above all. A great partner and teammate, Dad was able to help bring out the best in those with whom he competed through his calm and focused mindset. He was an excellent dancer, something my sister Kathy shared with him. Dad danced like he played tennis, and played tennis like he danced, with an effortless style and grace. My sister Nora recalls that while he and Grandpa firmly believed Fred Astaire to be the best dancer ever, Mom strongly favored Gene Kelly. Despite this ongoing dispute, together, Mom and Dad could really cut a rug. And Dad never forgot how to dance. When he was living at the Atrium during music appreciation, He would pop right up and start dancing on cue when prompted by the energetic activity director. His lightheartedness and beginner's mind made him a stellar player and dancer. Now, none of us are perfect, and even our heroes have weaknesses, like Superman has kryptonite. Dad approached the process of food consumption with an abundance of caution. He had what my sister Nora likes to refer to as Irish palate, a heavy preference for meat, potatoes, and other basics. When he had to travel to China for an extended business trip in the late 80s, Nora remembers being legitimately concerned for his well-being. What is he going to eat? If a bad actor was looking to set an elaborate trap for Dad, this was it. A highly formal social setting, and Dad outside his comfort food zone. His polite, gentlemanly instincts at war with his Irish programming. And when Dad wasn't out conquering the business world, winning tournaments, and generally doing good in his community, he was most likely on the couch in the living room, if it was the morning, or on the couch in the den, probably smoking a cigar, if it was the afternoon or evening. Let's just say that my family has some suspicions about where my own selective eating habits and general lack of handiness around the house may come from. Dad actually loved a great meal, and especially at one of his preferred restaurants. My brother Will is very thankful for the many lunches around town that he was able to have with him over the past decade. And Dad wasn't really just relaxing on those couches. He called it decompressing and processing. He kept with him a large yellow notepad and a felt tip pen for constant note-taking. Life was a giant equation that Dad was constantly trying to balance. Fortunately, for all of our sakes, Mom also has a very particular set of special skills. Through her superlative planning and formidable organizational abilities, she delivered a steady flow of comforting meals and a tightly functioning household operation. Far more importantly, Mom was Dad's dependable partner and best friend, as well as his sounding board at the regular one-on-one dinners. He couldn't have done it all without her, nor would he have ever dreamed of it. My sister Kathy will never forget being inspired by so many of Dad's successful efforts right here at Seaway. And a joyful time that she, her husband John, and her boys Teddy and Nikki spent with Dad at their beach and tennis club in San Diego during his and Mom's many visits there. My sister Nora remembers Dad's devotion during her breast cancer treatment, how he religiously accompanied her to her chemotherapy appointments, and the strong impression he made on her doctors and nurses who continued to ask about him years later at her checkups. On weekday nights, when he was in grade school, my brother Will would look out the window at North Verhallion Drive, watching the headlights go by, eagerly waiting for a pair to turn down our street because it meant that Dad was almost home. Will feels incredibly privileged to have been Dad's son, and in his words, I will always cherish those moments I was lucky enough to have with him. I will take him with me wherever I go, every step of the way. There are two things I especially hold on to. The great big hugs Dad and I shared each night right when he got home from work, before I had gone off to boarding school, college, and beyond. And as a boy, sitting at his feet while he lay on the couch in the den, watching another game on TV together. That has always felt like the safest place in the world to me, under his protection. Nothing could go wrong with my dad there to save the day. Thank you, Dad, for making us feel safe. Thank you for believing in us, for being the kindest listener, and for setting the very best example. Thank you, Dad, for all of it. You were unbelievable. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. For those of you who don't know me, I am Eldon Mayer. Dennis and I founded Lynch and Mayer in 1976
with the idea of having just a few clients. Fortunately, we started out with one client whose fees were large enough to keep us and our two employees well paid. What happened, though, was that our track record over those past 6 years, managing the assets of the Minneapolis family, got around. And pension and endowment funds wanted us to manage assets for them. If we were going to go this route, we would have to learn how to do institutional marketing. We retained a consultant whose clients were most of the large banks. And he took us on, thinking maybe we would listen to him, which he said his large clients would not. So we decided to give it a go. Dennis took on marketing while continuing to work on stock selection and portfolio management with me. He turned out to be an ace marketer. In fact, 2 years later, an article in the Institutional Investor made the point that our marketing effectiveness was the best among all of the independent asset management firms of the day. Let me go back to where I started. From the moment Dennis and I teamed together in the mid-1970s, we got along famously. In fact, I cannot recall ever having a disagreement. We actually loved each other. Of course, as I'm sure you all know, Dennis was easy to love. His family loved him. His friends loved him. His Wall Street pals loved him. And our employees did too. Whenever one of them needed someone to talk to, Dennis was invariably the one they would turn to. I definitely loved Dennis from the bottom of my heart. Every day at Lynch and Mayer started with a meeting of the investment staff. The idea was to prove up new investment ideas. I tended to favor high growth stocks, while Dennis tended toward more conservative ones, usually good dividend payers. Whatever we were doing worked well, as our performance was consistently outstanding. Now a few non-investment things. As many of you know, Dennis was not only a scholar and/or Yale important, but he also was a truly outstanding athlete. While at Yale, he was invited to the U.S. Tennis Open at Forest Hills. In the first round, he met Kit Seixas, the reigning and 5 times Open champion. In those days, matches were 3 sets. Dennis won the first one, lost the second in a cliffhanger, but Seixas got the better of him in the third deciding set. He was a great basketball player too, all Ivy at league champion Yale. And I might add, I was told by observers that even though he stood something like 5'10 and a half, 5'11, he could accidentally scrape his elbow on the rim when going up for a rebound. In closing, Dennis and I spent all day with each other, 5 days a week, for over 30 years. We teamed beautifully and fashioned a firm that was very well respected. Thanks, Dennis, for being the best partner I could have ever had.
Thanks. Hey, everybody. So I also got to work with Dennis at Lynch and Mayer. In fact, he hired me straight out of business school. And one of the first things I most admired and respected, and everybody at the firm respected and admired, Dennis and loved him, but was that unlike virtually everyone I had met on Wall Street, Dennis made sure to leave the office by 4:30 virtually every single day because he put family first. And this was unheard of. I mean, it was unheard of. And that was my goal. I came from a blue collar background, and dads were always home for dinner. And it was inconceivable to me that I wouldn't be home for dinner with my kids. So when I interviewed, I would tell people this, and they'd all look at me like I must be from the moon. But Dennis, anyway, Dennis said he preferred it that way. And anyway, it really said a lot about what mattered most to Dennis. And I also got to be in the office early with him, and many, many days, many times a week, for years and years, we would get together and talk stocks, but he would always talk about his wife and his children and tell me about their various challenges and their accomplishments with great pride. And anyway, and I would share my stories with my kids. And so Dennis was, of course, first my boss, but he became a close friend and really like a father to me. I learned so much about how to be a gentleman, a good man from Dennis. And I do want to mention two little things, I guess. One of the things that's remarkable about Dennis that's been commented on is his humility. So Dennis and I were both big basketball fans, and we used to talk basketball all the time during the NBA season and the college season. After I'd been working there for about 15 years, I was on the phone with somebody, and they were talking about how amazing Dennis was, and I talked about how he played Arthur Ashe and tennis, which I had heard, not from Dennis, of course. And this person tells me, well, you know, of course, that he was drafted by the New York Knicks. I'm like, what, are you kidding me? I rushed right into the Dennis. Is this true? How could you possibly not tell me? All these years we talk basketball all the time. But that was Dennis, as you know. He was just a humble guy. And he was generous. He was sort of the office counselor. People would go to him when they were upset or anxious. And early in my career, it was not as secure as you might think. And I used to wander in whenever I was unsure of myself, which was pretty awesome, and sit there and fiddle around. And I would never come out quite and ask him directly, but he always found a way to reassure me and encourage me, even when I screwed up. And which I did. And well, like all of you, I love Dennis. He was so beloved in our firm, you just can't imagine it. And clients, brokers, everybody just admired him for all the good reasons. Well, Dennis especially did such a great job. That's, I gotta keep it short. Thank you.
I would like to thank Anna Reed and all of the volunteers that put together this event, and express my gratitude that you honored my fervent display. Thank you very much. A person's life is like a jewel with many facets. Our interactions with each other reflect, like facets, aspects of our personality. Everyone here has felt the positivity and warmth that emanated from Dennis through our interactions with him. I remember the first time over 60 years ago that it was in the building behind us. It was quite intimidating. It was a time capsule with a presence. Instead of the coats of arms of feudal knights, there were plaques of legendary tennis champions with dates of their reign. Years later, after we had moved back from California, we attended an event here marking Dennis's retirement as president. When Dennis spoke, at times he was moved to tears, expressing his love and attachment to the club. and what it meant to him and to my father, who some of you may remember. With humility and gratitude, Dennis viewed himself as just one in a long line of stewards whose responsibility was to preserve the experience of STLCC for future generations. Having lived a full life, Dennis was a public success in business as well through his athletic achievements. But at his foundation, he was a son, a brother, a husband, a father, and a grandfather. In 1955, when Dennis was entering Red Bank Catholic High School and I was entering Blue Cross in fourth grade, we moved to Lynch, New Jersey City. As a son in a family of four siblings, Dennis gave my father the most joy. He was Dennis's primary athletic booster. He took every double fault and missed hoop in his stomach. On March 12, 1962, I witnessed the extent of this dynamic in their relationship during the NCAA National Tournament at the Palestra in Philadelphia. Yale, the Ivy League champions, had drawn third-ranked Wake Forest in the first round of the competition. Instead of his expected blowout, Yale played well above their normal game and at times looked like it might be a major upset. The game was so intense that quite literally, my father almost had another heart attack. It was 3 years after his first attack, so this is close, it's not like there's a big space in between. He got so pumped up and excited in the game that we had to leave the stands. To regain his composure, he took on one of his nitrate listening pills and we walked back and forth behind the bleachers. That was at the end of the game. They lost by 10 points, but they were outstanding. And a real underdog. Dennis and my father also had a great relationship, communicating and discussing business. I have also observed the similar rapport between Dennis and me. In his life, Dennis got to play both the roles of advisee and advisor, a rewarding experience for all concerned. Dennis began his tennis career at Monmouth Beach Club under the tutorship of Louis Bellotto. Louis, a professional squash and tennis player, was the head squash pro at the City Athletic Club in New York City. He was a tennis pro at the Beach Club for 21 years. It was Louis Bellotto who helped Dennis to focus to become as successful a player as he was. My father was often a guide to the path Dennis took in the future. When Dennis was in fifth grade, he was equally good at tennis and baseball. At the time, we had a summer house in 20 Ocean Avenue in Monmouth Beach, which had a 30-foot deep double lot. Consequently, a lot of baseball was played in the backyard. He liked both sports equally, but my father prevailed upon him to give up baseball and focus on tennis because of the sport that he had played most of his life. At the time, Dennis was reluctant to give up baseball. As it turned out, my father did give good advice. Dennis went on to become the boys division New Jersey state champion and later the champion of the junior division. He finished his academic tennis career as captain of the tennis team and captain of the Prentice Cup. Reminiscing about Yale, my wife's daughter once asked during dinner at the Mark Hopkins Hotel in San Francisco, "Did you get a great education at Yale?" I just smiled. Replied, "No. It was that I couldn't avoid getting a good education." One time when visiting DKE, his fraternity, I asked him what his favorite things to do were. He said sleep, sports, cards, and study in that order. In spite of his self-deprecating assessment, Dennis had excellent analytical skills. Long before his Wall Street successes, Dennis was sought after at our summer jobs in Monmouth. He was a great handicapper. He had a speed rating system that he used was quite effective. Sometimes he got off from work to compute data for distribution to later in the day for believers. As a big brother, Dennis was my hero. He was 4 years older than me, and I would accompany my father to watch him play basketball games and tennis matches. When Dennis became state champion in the junior division, he became eligible to compete in the Junior Tennis Nationals at Westside Tennis Club in Forest Hills. Unfortunately for Dennis, there was another player making his national debut. His name was Arthur Ashe. Obviously, at the time, we had no idea how famous Arthur would become. At 13 years of age, two things stood out to me from the experience. The first was the way Arthur was treated by the club members. Second, it was the way my dad reacted to me. I was naive and did not understand that the members' standoffishness at the time was racist. My father, on the other hand, had the opposite reaction. He welcomed me. Arthur and my father hung out, and while sipping iced teas on the veranda, had great conversations. Years later, Dennis ran into Arthur at an airport when traveling. Arthur recalled the day and asked Dennis to convey his best regards to my dad. Arthur was an excellent role model and a real gentleman. As it turns out, so is my father and also Dennis. Through tennis, Dennis was able to forge relationships that sustained him and not only improved the quality of his life, but also enriched our lives as well. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. There's going to be a slight change in the program. Mary, my wife, is going to speak to you. She has an eloquent voice. She's very smart. And very smart. And I'm really happy that she's willing to talk to us this afternoon. Thank you.
These are entirely Paul's words. I am reading. Once upon a time in 1962, a gentleman in this club called me and said that I was not entered in the men's doubles tournament. I told him that was true because I could not find my last year's partner. The caller said that he was calling on behalf of Dennis Lynch, who had recently joined the club and wanted to enter the men's doubles, but he didn't have a partner either. I replied that my last year doubles partner had apparently disappeared. The caller said that Dennis would have to know by that Friday. I told him that I would let him know by Friday. No word from my doubles partner by Friday, and thus began my 15 years of partnership with Dennis. We arranged to meet Saturday morning at the club. We shook hands and exchanged pleasantries. Dennis asked me which side of the court I preferred. I said I thought my backhand was steadier. He said that either side was okay with him. I liked that answer. We decided to go ahead with the arrangement with the proviso that if it didn't work out, we would terminate the arrangement. That didn't happen for 15 years. Dennis had a great touch and a sensitive instinct. I can recall when I was injured in our final match. Dennis calmly said, "Take it easy for a while. We can talk about it tomorrow." I knew what he was saying, and I knew he was right. And so this was the end of our 15-year adventure. Dennis was a great player and a great partner. I can't recall in the 15 years that we played together ever having a dispute with each other or with our opponents. Early on, we discussed whether Dennis should play the backhand court rather than the forehand because his overhead was stronger. We said we would discuss it when we lost, but that only happened once. So we just kept going. Dennis was a quick athlete. His quick hands and graceful overhead were beautiful to watch. After Dennis's illness, we got together for lunch at the beach club. I remember Dennis' interest in the intricacies of the stock market and his playing bridge hands. And there was always basketball and, of course, his wonderful family. A couple of months ago, I was watching television, seeing the gentleman who won the Indy 500 car race. He was South American and really excited and said, "The Lord is good to me," unquote. That's what I felt like Dennis, with Dennis as a partner and as a great friend. And it's hard to believe that he's not with us anymore. That's it.
Good morning, everyone. So on behalf of my mom and my siblings, I just want to begin today by thanking all of you in attendance. I would also like to express our gratitude for all the written correspondence we've received over the past few months. The outpouring of support has been quite remarkable, and it's heartening to know that my dad had such an impact on so many of you. I can't tell you how many touching letters I've read paying homage to his life, and your meaningful thoughts help to ease the grief that we feel as a result of his passing. I know we've gone over it a little bit here, but so as you know, my dad was, among other things, an outstanding athlete. Take a walk in there and have a look at the plaques, and that speaks to his tennis prowess. But as we've gone over a bit, he was also a great basketball player, and he was drafted by the New York Knicks in the strength of his remarkable career. However, as you'd be the first to admit, he couldn't have done it single-handedly. He played alongside a man named Rick Kaminsky, who would ultimately be recognized as an Ivy League basketball legend. My dad and Dr. Kaminsky formed a strong bond both on and off the court, and would go on to be lifelong friends. Now, due to unfortunate circumstances, Dr. Kaminsky cannot be here today. So this morning, I have the honor of sharing Dr. Kaminsky's thoughts and passing of my father. Good morning to all. My name is Rick Kaminsky. Over the past few weeks, it's been very difficult for me to sit down and organize my thoughts and convert them to words on paper. Difficult, not because I haven't wanted to write something, but difficult because part of me still doesn't want to accept that my very good friend Dennis is no longer with us. I'm so honored that Anne-Marie has allowed me to share my thoughts about Dennis and her lives today. I am most grateful to have known Dennis for 60 years. Remarkably, we first met on the train ride from New York to New Haven in September 1960 to begin our freshman year at Yale. Thus began our trip together from teenagers to young men and subsequent adulthood. Dennis was always a little wiser, a little smarter, a little craftier, a little smoother, a little more thoughtful, and a little more gracious than I. He was also a much better dancer than I, and I admired him for all his qualities. Dennis was a consummate gentleman. There's always this part of me, just at the level of consciousness, that felt Dennis had more answers and was more knowledgeable than I, and I looked to him many times for his advice. For 4 years at Yale, Dennis and I were inseparable. We were roommates, basketball teammates, club mates, and fraternity brothers. We won many basketball games together and lost a few together. We attended class together, studied together, and partied together. We did many good things together, and also a few things of which I am not so proud today. I was in his wedding and he was in my wedding. Later in life, even the miles that separated us did not diminish my affection or respect for Dennis. Dennis's career and achievements speak for themselves. He was successful at everything he did. He was amazingly successful in business, community work, and charity work. He was most of all successful as a family man. A devoted husband, father, brother, and good friend. So why do we come together today for this memorial service? As I reflect on the past 60 years, I think Anne-Marie is absolutely right. This is a celebration of Dennis's life well lived. We should celebrate that our lives intersected with his. We should celebrate that our lives were made better because of him. We should celebrate that every day we spent with him was a very, very special day. Dennis was a special man, and we were all very lucky. And Marie, you were a saint. Dennis chose wisely when he chose you. I'm so sorry that I'm unable to be with you today, but my thoughts and prayers are there. So those are some very touching words from Dr. Kaminsky, and I would just like to thank him for sharing them with us and for allowing me to be the messenger. Again, we're all very moved by all of there's seemingly hundreds of beautiful, heartfelt notes that we received the last few months. And, there's going to be a bit of a retread here, but I just want to share, when we lived on North Rahalian, still in grade school, I was quite young. Anyway, our house had this back staircase. Some of you may be familiar with it. There was a slide next to it as well. A bit of I don't know what they're thinking of that, but a bit dangerous. But anyway, it's not up the slide or staircase. At the bottom of the staircase, there's a door and a window. And when it would get dark on weeknights, I would station myself right at the bottom of the back stairs, looking out through the window towards RCDS, and the point at which Bellevue intersected with North Rahalian. I would track the headlights as they head south on Bellevue, eagerly anticipating those that would turn onto North Rahalian, for this meant that my dad might be arriving home shortly. Now, we've long since left the house on North Rahalian, and my father has passed on. But again, as my brother relayed earlier, I will always cherish the time I was able to spend with him. It was such an unbelievable privilege having him as my father. But as Dr. Kaminsky said, we were all so lucky. And let us forever celebrate that our lives intersected with his for as long as we did.
We are on the home stretch of the benefit of those, especially yours, Sandy. From the tremendous outpouring of affection and respect from my husband, our daughter Nora and I have chosen some especially memorable words received from family and friends, which we would like to share with you now briefly. Many of you good people present deserve a footnote or two. And so I quote, Dennis was blessed to have had you by his side during the happy times and the hard times. Even though Dennis's decline was long and cumulative, we understand that you were devastated by the reality of losing him. I know what it's like to lose your best friend. You will forget that they are gone and then remember again, and your heart will break one more time. To the very end, Dennis recognized how much you loved him. Grief is the enormous price we pay for love. Grief is the healing of a broken heart. Dennis has taken a piece of your heart with him. Words cannot fill the void of Dennis's absence. The world was indeed a better place with him in it.
Dennis Lynch was a magnificent man who blended the analytical with the playful. He entered serious discourse with salient thoughts and calm demeanor. Dennis was a person of unusual integrity, deep faith, and quiet charisma. He was thoughtful, compassionate, magnanimous, gentle, and modest. He possessed a strong moral compass and was, quote, one of God's best works, unquote. Dennis was an unpretentious, beautiful, special soul who led a full life as a fixture in the Rumson community and was a major contributor to his larger world. He was a giant in my life, an extraordinary man by any standard. Tennis champion to all. What makes him a champion in my book is that he was delightful and fun, interesting, warm, and exceptionally kind. Dennis was a master of many talents, but he didn't flaunt the fact, a rarity in this day and age. Dennis achieved so much with a balance of confidence and humility rarely seen. His obituary was a masterpiece, and so was he. A gentleman on and off the court, Dennis embodied all of the values and traditions cherished at the Seabright Tennis Club. When I was president of Seabright Tennis Club, it was useful in the situation to remind myself, what would Dennis do? I feel privileged to have experienced his wisdom, grace, and humor firsthand. He was like a father to me. Dan was a natural leader, a shining light to all who knew him. He led by example, inspiring us all to be better people.
God blessed you with the gift of each other. You enjoyed a beautiful love story which ended too soon. His children are a testament to the man he was. I so admire your family and the amazing job Dennis and you did with the children, and they in turn with their children. Our two husbands knew they had married girls who would love them forever. I pray that you have strength for today and hope for tomorrow. Dennis was the benchmark for goodness and what was inevitably the right thing to do. How rich was Den's life and how enriching to others. Dennis will forever be a part of you, and the love you shared will live on. He was our favorite song and dance man. May your memories be a mainstay for the future. May honoring Dennis bring you peace and comfort. We can't undo the inescapable pain of life itself. We can, however, create a space for God to hold us. As a couple of faith, you know you will be together again. Until then, my dear Jen, I wish to thank the speakers for their insightful and really inspiring comments. I'd also like to thank Anne Hawley, Jeannie Shanley, and Betsy Barrett for their amazing help in planning and implementing this day. And I thank you one and all for all of your tender thoughts that you shared with us, and also for sharing in this beautiful tribute today to the man I married over a half century ago, and whose memory I have cherished always. Thank you.
Yeah.